Welcome to this IOSH Future Leaders webinar, Transform Your Future, Career Change into Occupational Safety and Health with your Future Leader Group members, Debbie Linzell and Fiona Fullerton. In this webinar, we aim to provide insights on how to effectively transition into this rewarding career, regardless of your current profession or background. We hope you find it as inspiring as we do. Today, we'd like to welcome Charles Fidler to our discussion. It's great to have you here. Let's start by finding out about you. Charles, how did you make the transition into OSH?
My journey into health and safety, probably not your most direct route into the profession, but I started with a geography degree at university before graduating and heading into education, as I thought I wanted to be a teacher at the time, and did 2 years in that sector, working mostly within sports coaching, PE lessons, geography lessons, that sort of thing. After 2 years of doing that, felt it wasn't really for me. So I moved back home, and sort of in that period of looking for a job, just started working in one of my local supermarkets just for some money. And those part-time hours became full-time. Full-time became store management training or manager training, and that led me into store management. And I'd been doing that for about 2 years in total, sort of from that part-time period through to being a manager, and heard that my job was going to be made redundant and started looking, and applied for a number of jobs really, because I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I applied for a role within the headquarters of the supermarket chain that I was working at the time, and didn't get the job that I originally applied for. But my application was sent on to another team that was hiring, and that happened to be the safety team. And that's where my journey within the health and safety profession really started. So that was back end of 2016. So 8 years ago. Time flies.
It does, it definitely does. It sounds quite similar to mine, because I also did a degree and I did a degree in dance, and I was going to go into teaching dance. So it's kind of like a bit of a similarity there, unfortunately. I then was injured, so I couldn't carry on, and happened to get a job in a safety team, again, exactly the same. Wouldn't have thought of applying, but did, and got that role. And then I have also, carried on, and I love it. I can't actually imagine working in a different sector now. How
I'm
about you,
absolutely the
Fiona?
same.
I got into OSH in uni. So my last year of uni, I did an internship and came out of uni and decided I really need to use my degree. So went and worked offshore and got into health and safety within the company, and that was 9 years ago, and still in OSH and still enjoying it. The very different ways that we've all taken to get into it through different routes. But I think it shows that you don't have to go to uni and join it straight away. You can certainly go and find other ways of gaining experience and life skills and then coming back to OSH.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's so many skills that you can use, isn't there?
Yeah. So Charles, what transferable skills have you taken from your previous careers?
I think the big things for me, certainly, whether you call it a skill or not, but being able to build relationships with people that are genuine and authentic, to understand the work that they do and understand how they do that work, is really important. So I think from those previous roles where I've been either coaching or been managing a team, that's really important to understand who you're working with, and what pinch points there are within certain tasks or processes and things like that. I also think being able to then listen to what people are telling you and really sort of taking an interest in that, because there may be things that you might miss otherwise if you don't get that interaction and really have that opportunity to listen to what people are describing to you. And then off the back of that, how do you turn what you're hearing into sort of messaging that you can take forward. So actually, how are you communicating future messages with people, and how do you make sure that they understand them? Is there a sort of multiple ways of receiving messages and things like that? So having a really clear communication process with people and understanding what might work for one group probably doesn't work for another group, and then really trying to tailor that to the audience that you're speaking to. So they're probably the big transferables that I've taken in my experience. I don't know if that's similar for either you or Debbie at all.
The communication one, yes, definitely. I think for me, I took the hands-on experience that I'd learned. So rather than just being safety as my career through and through, actually getting that hands-on on the tools and being able to understand what the teams are actually doing was what I took from my first part of my career. What about you, Debbie?
I absolutely agree. Definitely the communication skills, that's probably my top one. I'd say definitely discipline. When you're learning about dance, discipline is so big. You have to be disciplined with yourself to get things done. And creativity, looking at things from a different way, which I think also comes in with what you were saying about people communication, because if you're thinking about how someone does something, you think about how you can creatively make it better or creatively change the way they're doing something. So we obviously have quite a lot of different transferable skills, but if you were looking to make the change of career into OSH today, what initial steps would you take, Charles?
I think the first one would be curious, find out what you can get yourself involved in now. So if you were curious about getting into the safety profession, what is it that your current workplace do? Are there safety rep positions, or are there things that you can support the safety team with to help you get a little bit of exposure to the safety world? Can you deliver some toolbox talks? Can you go and deliver, I don't know, some data to a team? Whatever it might be. I think that's a really beneficial thing to get you started, just to maybe get some creative juices flowing around some of the things that are out there currently. I would also sort of be curious to say, what's out there, what kind of job really takes your fancy, if that makes sense, because not everything's for everyone, and certain places may not fit your sort of personal values or behaviors and things like that. So it's really important, I suppose, to understand where you might be looking as well, and what they might require. So they're probably like the curiosity elements, I suppose, that I think are really important to think about. And also as well, if you haven't, I'd start thinking about looking at joining IOSH. Lots of different membership levels, but certainly if you're entering that space, then you've got the student membership or the affiliate membership, and that will just give you lots of access to current themes in the profession, loads of safety updates on legislation or other bits and pieces that are going on, and it will help start building that knowledge base and identifying things that you could start looking at, and if anything else piques your interest, then it gives you that opportunity to go and explore that. So they're probably the things that I'd start with, but again, that's personal. In my experience, probably with my untraditional route into the profession, I got to quite a late stage without having sort of done maybe the traditional stuff around risk assessments and being able to write safety standards and policy documents and things like that. So for me, that was a step that I took from leaving my last place to where I am now, is that's what I wanted. I wasn't going to get that opportunity where I was, so I needed to go and expand and develop those skills, and took that leap really. So yeah, it's just understanding where you might want to go, what fits that, and where you'll have the opportunity to grow. But that's where I'd start, I think. I don't know if it's different for you too.
I've actually thought exactly the same, to be honest.
Great minds.
Great minds think alike. I would absolutely have a look at what's out there at the moment, what opportunities there are. There might even be something within, the place that you're working right now that you've never really noticed before. And like you said about courses, you can always start with the things like a DSC assessor course, or even if you're just going to sort of come forward as a first aider, something like that, which really supports the safety team. It gets you out there and exposed to these topics, and I think it's a fantastic way of starting. How about you, Fiona? Have you got a different view coming from a slightly different background?
I think very similar. But if you're maybe not going to get that opportunity where you are to get into OSH, have a look at, as you mentioned, some of the courses. What can you do to get work experience, networking, get to know others around you? Do you want a complete change like Charles has from teacher to then eventually coming into OSH? So if you want a complete change, have a think about it. As Charles said, there's so many industries, they all need OSH support, and they can all offer something different. So it's, as Charles said, finding out what you want to do. And it might just be a bit of networking, mentoring, and getting involved with someone to actually learn about what they do day to day and understand what you want.
Yeah,
I think it's also,
definitely.
oh, sorry, Debbie, I was just going to say, I think it's also really important to say that it's okay to not know what you want as well. Because at the very beginning of the journey, I had no idea what the world of health and safety was really like. I took the job because I was being made redundant in another space. And so this was a way of being able to ensure that I was still being employed and earning some money. And, so at the time it was a case of, okay, well, I know absolutely nothing about this, but I'm going to be open to the change and open to learn some new things and be challenged in a different way, because I'm going to be in an environment that I haven't had any exposure to. And so I just wanted to make that, I think, having then grown within the profession, it's been made clear to me what I need to go and work on and what I'd like to go and do and those sorts of things. But at the very start, I had absolutely no idea. So I think that ability to be curious and be like, I am going to take on a new challenge. I'm going to learn some new things.
I think that's a really good point that you brought up, Charles. I remember sitting at uni and we had someone talking to us and they were like, you need to have a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. And I'm sitting there thinking, I have no idea where I want to be in the next 5 years or 10 years. And I think it's probably only the last couple of years that I've only started to realize what my full 5 and 10-year plan is, 10 years after graduating. So I think it's a great point that Charles made, that you don't have to know what you want to do. Take the time. It does take longer for some. Some people do come with their plans and this is where they want to be, and that's absolutely great. So just take the time and find what you really want to do.
Absolutely. There's no shame in trying something and not enjoying it as well. And sometimes you have to do a job to realise that actually that's not what you want to do. And whether that's in a sector, because I mean, you can change sector within health and safety. I've changed many sectors, whether it's within that or within, actually health and safety isn't for me at all. There's absolutely no shame in that, in my opinion. You've got to try something to know what you want to do.
And it'll build your backpack of skills and learnings and transferable skills. So just think of it as a step of filling your backpack and moving on to finding what you really want to do.
I really love that, filling your backpack.
Yeah, so good. I think as well, like all of your examples as well, just show how transferable everything is, even within the industry, which I just think is hugely exciting. That you could be working somewhere one day, and then later on down the line, you're in a completely different space, in an area that you're probably not very familiar with. But it's just amazing that you get all those opportunities.
So do we have any practical advice for anyone thinking of changing career?
I think along the way, I've learnt that sometimes a qualification isn't everything. You can learn a lot by getting involved and just giving something a try, which I've already touched on. But I used to kind of struggle, I think, when I first started out with my confidence and giving my opinion. But I've realised something that I've really realised is that I need to speak up, and my opinion can be valued as well. And it's all about how you communicate that rather than feeling that you're not valued. How about you, Charles?
Yeah, I feel very similar actually. I think things that we touched on earlier around sort of being personable and approachable are key things that you'd want to take forward, and you want to be able to understand what your colleagues, teammates are going through in terms of work process and things like that when it comes to doing the work that they do. So if you have moved into an area that you're not familiar with at all, it's really good to get that hands-on experience, or at least go and find out and see and observe what those people are up to. I think just have that mindset of, if you're moving into something new or you want to go and do that, then you've got to be able to take learning, and you're going to continue to learn, and that's how you're going to grow. So it's okay to ask questions is probably my advice. I think that's something that I continue to want to improve on and want to do better at, because they're so important to maintain that curiosity and find out what's going on. And I think as well, accepting challenge when it comes to you, if it's been given constructively. But also, I'm just building on your point, really, Debs, is around finding your own voice as well, and feel like you can challenge, and that your voice is just as important as somebody else's. I think they're my key bits. So I hope that made sense.
Some great advice. And I think there's also, when you first come into the profession, you almost feel as if you need to know everything and almost be an encyclopedia of legislation and company rules, but it's okay to not know the answer and actually say, I'm going to get back to you, and actually go and read up. We're not encyclopedias of everything, as we just can't keep everything in our mind. So I think it's taking time, and as you both said, go and really find, as we've spoken about through the conversation, find what you want to do, get some observing, get some hands-on, and go out there and network and ask people. If it's the industry you want to go into, just go and ask them.
That's some really great advice. I've also found that my network has been quite helpful along my journey. Do any of you have any tips on how to engage with branches and groups, or how to grow your networks?
I don't mind going. My network's quite small. It's the thing when you sort of start out in the safety world and have come from other areas, you probably haven't built up a huge network. So that's something that's continuing to grow for me, which is really exciting. I've sort of moved about geographically as well with jobs and things like that. So I've been to the odd branch meeting here and there where I can make it work. But now that I'm sort of geographically more settled, then that's something that's definitely on my radar, to reach out to local branches again and start heading to those meetings as a way of meeting new people and continuing to grow the network. But I think for me, the big things at the moment that I can provide examples of the fact that LinkedIn seems to be very much a growing space, and being involved with IOSH and the Future Leaders as well, like Debs and Fiona, is great. That's been an amazing way to grow my network and sort of not socialize, but collaborate and meet with like-minded people who are just so passionate about what they do and improving, the world of work and making it safer, which is that's massively exciting, and that's been great fun. And that's probably the way that I've grown my network the most so far. Just being able to volunteer and be involved in that community.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think the Future Leaders group, not even just volunteering. I went to one of the events as a Future Leader group events, and I found that the networking there was fantastic, because it is future leaders, so it's all like-minded people. And I also really enjoy the webinars. I mean, I struggle to get to IOSH events, but when I can, I get to the branch events. But the webinars for me are just fantastic, because I can at least see online that there's a community out there. And sometimes someone might raise a question or something like that at the end, and I think, oh, that's a really good question, and I wonder what they do or something like that, and then look them up on LinkedIn and find out, which are enjoy?
I think I'm similar to you both. I probably didn't network enough at the start of my OSH career, and I've probably only found it in the last couple of years. Probably more, as Charles said, thanks to the future leaders and actually getting out there to events and getting involved with the group. And again with webinars. And I think it's great to sit in the webinars and actually think someone's asking the same question that I've got. I'm not actually alone in thinking the exact same thing. But yeah, I think it's just reaching out to who interests you, where your interests lie, and just get chatting with people. I've certainly heard feedback from others, just send a message on LinkedIn, ask them. People seem very open to passing on their advice.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I suppose as well, it's certainly from my experience, I don't know if it's the same for the two of you as well, but in terms of growing a network, the networks that I've built in the past as well, so the people that I've used to work with and the people that I work with now, they're also great people to lean back on as well. So don't always think that if you're going to grow your network, you sort of move on from one place and you leave people behind, because actually, that's another way to keep that network. So I think I had that in the back of my head was like, oh, I think I've got a really small network, but actually the number of people that I've been fortunate enough to work with in the past and currently are really helpful in answering questions or helping me find new people or be introduced to new people and new ways of thinking as well. So I have tried to utilize those elements as well in the past, because it can be a bit daunting trying to reach out to someone on LinkedIn or wherever if you've not met them before.
Yeah, definitely. I still speak to the team that I worked with in my first OSH job. We're still quite close, and their input, the questions that we ask, sometimes, even though they're all working in different areas now and different businesses, we sometimes still have the same sort of questions, and we all kind of try and help each other, which I think is so nice, so unique to share that knowledge, and just really, really lovely.
I think it's making sure you grow your network with who you also want in it, so not just growing it because I need to have a big network. Make the network because it works for what you want and what you want to learn out of them, rather than I need to have a network of so many people. Take the time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
I think we've had some really good conversation today, some really good points. So thank you, Charles, for joining us today. It's been really inspiring. So thanks for joining us on this webinar, and we hope you'll join us again soon for more Future Leaders content.